I'm Paul Shred, International Editor of the Cyber Express, and with me today is Financial Services Cybersecurity Consultant and Cyber Board Member Steve Ingram, and we're going to look at what banking and financial services sectors need to do to defend against deepfakes. Welcome, Steve. It's great to see you again.
Great to be with you again, Paul. Thank you.
Yeah. So what makes deepfakes such a unique and growing threat for financial services?
So let's step back in time a little bit. And I'll go back before Gen AI, before deepfakes. And I'm talking probably 10 or 15 years ago. And I had a client that had a global operation. And they had three CFOs, a key CFO who covered the Americas and the globe, one that covered Asia Pac, and one that covered Europe. The European CFO had never met personally with the CEO, but knew of him and had some communications from him. And it was late in the day, and it was a pretty busy period they were going through, and she received a phone call from the CEO, in air quotes, who first of all congratulated her on her son's graduation from university, said what a great moment that must be in their family life and how she's been working really hard and he really appreciates her effort. And she felt quite chuffed that he'd had the time to recognise things outside of work in her life. He then went on to explain that he was in Hong Kong, that he was on the verge of a significant transaction, but that it was like 2 a.m. or something in the US. He had no one on board to help him. He needed to transfer 800,000 USD instantly, or they ran the risk of losing the transaction. Not just did she nearly make that transaction, Paul, she made that transaction. And the next day sent an email out saying, look, I hope everything went well. Sent it to the CFO and the CEO. Hope everything went well. Hope the transaction worked and that you got the deal across the line. And she got the email back from the CEO going, what deal? What are you talking about? And it was just a good old social engineering scam. There was no tech or no malware. The guy had obviously done some research on social media, understood who his target was, understood the psychology, how to make her feel special and trusted and connected, and that he knew stuff about her. And that was an $800,000 scam that the money was gone. Like, we started the investigation the next day, the money had already gone from the account he nominated and on. We never saw it again. And she was obviously mortified, lost her role, and, all terrible outcomes. But I think I want to share that because what we're seeing today with deepfakes is it's not a new fraud. It's just a new technique. It's precise, it's fast, and it's scalable. And that's what makes it very, very different for us today. I think the bad guys, the threat actors, have learnt to weaponize trust. Financial services is still very much based on trust, on verification of relationships, people, transactions, communications. And the thing is, the deepfakes here don't just trick the system, but they trick the people involved. And we're seeing synthetic video, cloned voices, deepfake documents impersonating executives, customers, even impersonating regulators, deployed in real time, deployed so fast that people are so busy today, they rarely have time to pause and check anyway. And right now, with the deepfakes, you need to take a little bit more time to pause and fact check. And in fact, I'd say one of the best tools we have here is your gut instinct of your people, because that's the greatest detector that we can identify. But it's really understanding the speed, scale, and accuracy. I spoke with the CEO of one of the banks a few months ago, and they had a case similar to the one I described. A branch manager received a Teams call with someone that looked and sounded like the regional director. The background matched, the voice matched, everything back matched, and they'd asked them to conduct a wire transaction. On this occasion, they didn't, because something in the back of their mind or in the pit of their stomach just said, this isn't quite right. And it was good that they paused, that they checked, that they followed their instinct, and they prevented a fraud. But, Cyber's tracking a surge in these cases. The tools are cheap. The barrier to entry is low. The damage is real. And I think that's what makes it different today.
Yeah, I want to stay with that for just a second. Like there was that case where a finance employee, I think in Hong Kong, sent 25 million to scammers after being fooled by Zoom deepfakes. What have we learned from these incidents, and what can we do?
I think we've learned that it doesn't just happen on dodgy websites or emails anymore. It's happening on Zoom, on WhatsApp, on Slack. It's happening on every platform that we connect with customers and clients and suppliers and regulators on. I think that attack showed how authenticity, how trust is a weapon. Real voices, real logos, real urgency. But it's not just those big cases, Paul. I had another client, a financial controller, who approved a $180,000 transfer after a WhatsApp voice message, and it sounded like the CEO. The phrasing was perfect, the context and terminology was perfect, and it wasn't until the CEO called later they realised that it had all been faked. So, in the same example that I opened with, the difference here: this one was a machine, this one was AI, not a gifted swindler on the end of the phone. But I think what we learn here is that there's no safe platform anymore. Not to be scared, not to be fearful, but just to be more aware.
Yeah, that actually made me wonder: should there be like multiple levels of approval for transactions over a certain amount?
I think we do have that process. We do have multi-factor authentication. We do have techniques and machinery in place, but we just can't rely on that as confidently as we did in the past. I think we need to do more around being proactive. We need to find a way to build trust in the digital environment, but be able to rely on it, right? We need to put friction in the right place, and that could be just giving our operators more time to follow their instinct, to follow their guts. There was a fintech recently that we worked with at Cyber, and they had everything in place: KYC, biometrics, device checks. But they noticed there was a whole lot of accounts that were getting created perfectly, like such a clean process. There was this whole batch that there was no issues, no questions, no errors. And that caused some smart operator to go back and have a look, and they uncovered a ring of AI simulators. So this was like a brute force AI training ground to try and break through that organization's systems, but learn from that process so they can use that elsewhere also. So I think the smoothness of that approach was the clue. It was perfect. It was too perfect.
That's amazing. How are criminals using Gen AI to bypass controls like ID verification and biometrics?
So again, I think it's building the synthetic identities. We're seeing fraud rings create fake documents, create fake social profiles, fake histories, fake voice prints, fake backgrounds, fake families, fake everything. And they'll even, much as anyone in college that's doing a university assignment will run their assignment through a plagiarism and AI detector. The bad guys are running their fake identities through liveness detection tools and biometric gates. They're checking that this seems realistic, that it seems authentic, and that it will pass a verification. Again, with Cyber, they had a client that saw a wave of failed biometric authentications. And similar to the last scenario or last example I gave you, this was a threat actor training their tools. It was an attack campaign using synthetic IDs at scale, refining their techniques, refining their approach. And really, at the end of the day, it was a big cat and mouse game, but the cat is an awful lot bigger today.
It's amazing stuff. What can we do to rebuild trust in a digital environment where nothing feels authentic anymore?
Well, like I was saying before, I think it's being skeptical, it's following a gut instinct, It's putting friction points in the right place in the organisation systems and processes, and you want as much straight through non-human intervention as possible. But we can't just rely on that. We need to be skeptical, and we need to go back and check that those tools are working, right? And if we have a whole raft of applications that are perfect and there's no setbacks, there's no questions, there's no doubts, there's probably something wrong, and we should lift up the hood and have a look under the cover to see what's going on.
So, are current regulations and controls adequate, and are traditional fraud controls failing us here?
Yeah, honestly, I'd have to say no. I think most regulations still are written for a world where documents were harder to fake and where fraud was slower and easier to detect and had a little bit more time to prevent. I think regulations are written where they think human intervention is still realistic and that the attackers are sloppy and that they'll get caught out, right? But as I said before, this is at scale, this is fast, this is industrialized, and this is smart. And it is, I think, sometimes, oddly enough, perfection of the attack is the anomaly. Perfection of the range of transactions or the series of applications is the anomaly. The adversaries aren't sloppy. They're running high-end, low-noise AI campaigns. Most regulators and most organisations are just starting to even try and catch up to the curve, you know. As I said, we've had one client recently and the attacker passed every control that this organisation had. And that was a red flag. I don't think they'd ever had a transaction before where there wasn't some sort of little question mark. And this is, you know, they realised that their defences were calibrated for amateurs, and it was only a human intervention that detected this anomaly through perfection. And they realised that their enterprise tools weren't operating at the same level of sophistication as the attackers. I'll go back to that first case that I talked about, right? It's not the person calling on the phone and being charming anymore. It's cloned, it's spoofed, it's so real, but it's fake. And it's probably your gut that's going to tell you something's not quite right. But we need new techniques and we need new responses and we need new regulations. We can't regulate our way out of it, but we certainly need to make it more difficult for the threat actors.
So we probably need tools that can detect scams in real time, maybe, you know, like, LLM signatures or something like that. Or
yeah,
I guess
there's no silver
kind of
bullet. Yeah, no silver bullet, but I think we can and we must adapt, and we've got to do it quickly. We need to build real intelligence into our trust models. We need training that challenges what feels real. Like, you know, we need training around this sophisticated fake. I think we need to give more leeway to our human operators to trust their gut instinct. I don't think they've AI'd. I don't think there's any Gen AI that mimics gut instinct yet. It will probably happen, but I don't think we have it yet. And we need to move fast and mobilise quickly. It's not about scaring people, but it's about staying or catching up to the curve. We're not going to stay ahead of the curve, but we can catch up to the curve. And the fraud playbook hasn't changed, but the tools have. With threat intelligence, with the sort of threat intelligence that Cyber delivers on a day-to-day basis, we can move closer to the curve. We can get a bit ahead of the next iteration. We can try and get ahead of that next attack before it hits our inbox, or we get the call, or we get the Zoom call that it's all fake. But we need to sort of give greater visibility on the threat landscape. We need people to trust wisely, but we need people to act faster. That's the game now. It's fast, it's industrialized, it's sophisticated, and we're in it.
Yeah. Wow. All right. My guest has been Cyber Board member Steve Ingram. Thank you, Steve, so much for your time and insights, and to our audience also.
Thanks, Paul.